First series review of 2020, and it just had to be this complicated, didn't it?
I mean, sure, the last series I covered had its fair share of controversies, but honestly, I felt very confident defending Mana and even Aguri to a degree. This season, however, not only does it have a controversial pink, but it also has a lot of other disagreeable elements, in my opinion. As a result, both my friends and the comment section can't seem to come to any sort of real consensus.
Where do I stand on the matter? Well, I don't think I dislike it as much as I used to.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still don't see this as a high tier season by any means, but much like Symphogear GX, I think I have softened to it a little, and quite frankly, I've seen much worse in recent years.
I don't know, maybe I'll gain a clear picture as we proceed through these reviews.
Anyway, as usual, let's first address the staff. This series was directed by Tatsuya Nakamine, the current series director of One Piece, but is best known in the Precure circles for his work on Heartcatch. Though I'm sure that won't play into anything at all. The screenplay was credited to longtime Precure writer Yoshimi Narita, best known for her work on the S Precure 5 seasons, and nowadays is known for her wacky comedy one-off episodes, which, yeah, I'm not going to pretend like I don't love them. And character designs were done by Masayuki Sato, who's also credited as the chief animation director of the show. He's held a similar dual position for several One Piece films and specials.
And with all that in mind, surely this should be a season that should have easily surpassed its divisive predecessor, right? Yeah, about that.
This unfortunately would become the last full Precure season for producer Hiroaki Shibata, who ended up taking the fall after 2 straight seasons that saw significant decreases in both TV ratings and toy sales.
He was then moved to the Super Sentai department, where I'm sure he found success there. Oh, never mind.
Now granted, I don't think ratings and toy sales are everything, and shouldn't be completely indicative of a show's overall quality, but as we'll soon see, this was the series that they might have put a few too many eggs into the basket for.
And with all the formalities out of the way, let's finally take a look at the series with one of the most overly long titles ever, Happiness Charge Precure. Way too many syllables.
Our series opened with an introduction to our villain faction right off the bat, the Phantom Empire, and their leader.
Miyuki's mom must have been really freaked out by her daughter's weird faces.
One of their monsters of the week, the Terrorbad, was already in a fight with the Blue of the season. The one who summoned it was this Volt-voiced fella named Namakelder, and the Blue was...
a bit of a spaz.
This is Hime, a very inexperienced cure to say the least, whom even after landing her supposed finisher on the Terrorbad, it barely grazed it. A counterattack depowered her into a mid-transformed state. Again, kind of sounds familiar, don't it? Anyway, she was rescued by another cure named Fortune, who made quick work of it. Defeating it released the Terrorbad's victim, and also rewarded her with the main gimmick of this season that was created through the snot of the mascot character. Okay, that is a little gross, though at least it's only coming out of his bag and not someplace else. Hime tried to thank her savior, but for some reason, this cure blamed her for releasing the villains in the first place, setting up an admittedly intriguing little subplot. Hime took that and her defeat rather well.
Yep, this is a Narita script, alright.
We then got our opening for the series, and what the?
Oh yeah, this was a thing, wasn't it?
For pretty much the first core of this series, they had veteran cures appeared for quick cameos to celebrate the franchise's 10th anniversary.
Which, while cute and everything, I could honestly take or leave this stuff. I mean, it's perfectly harmless, and I'm sure it's not bothering anyone, except maybe the budget accountants for the show.
I mean, if they were going to include something like this, why not also include a little quick summary of the cures for newer viewers who would have no idea who these superheroines from like a decade ago were? If Star Twinkle could squeeze in horoscopes every week, a little briefer on the Precure and their respective series shouldn't have been that hard to include.
And yeah, when you consider they had to make brand new animations and hired the veteran voice actresses, then yeah, it starts to feel like a bit of a needless expense, especially if it ended up taking away from this show's animation budget, as we'll soon see.
Oh no, it just didn't really add much of anything. It didn't even really play into the upcoming crossover movie at the time, but I guess it's better than throwing continuity into the frickin' blender. Anyway, as for the opening, it was just not good at all in my honest opinion. It was sung by Sayaka Nakaya, a former member of AKB48, and yeah, you could tell she still needed to work on her solo career. Granted, the lyrics and melodies certainly didn't help matters, key among them again of course being that overly long title which they tried to turn into a catchy beat, but it just doesn't flow off the tongue very well. And on top of that, just some really poorly orchestrated background tunes and nonsensical lyrics that also just throw in some quotes from our pink of the season, and you got just a mess of an opening theme.
Needless to say, there's a reason why this was the only Precure series whose openings and endings didn't make it onto the NHK's top 50.
So, after that easily skippable intro, we were introduced to our aforementioned pink of the series, Megumi Aino, played by Megumi Nakajima.
The show ended up having a lot of Megumis in it for whatever reason. But yeah, I'm sure a lot of you out there will recognize Nakajima as the voice provider for the Vocaloid Megpoid, as well as Ronka Lee from Macross Frontier. Is it bad time to mention I'm more of a Cheryl fan?
She was heading to school with her best friend Yuko Omori while singing about the Precure. Yeah, apparently just like reportedly her voice actor, Megumi was a fan of the Precure, even though in most series up until this point, outside of the All-Stars continuity, they made it clear that the Precure were still relatively unknown figures. Well, we would get the non-All-Stars reasoning later, but again, nice job dropping breadcrumbs there. Understandably, they were familiar with the Phantom Empire's activities and had even gotten kind of used to it to the point that they were able to still go to school.
Kids today, so desensitized by movies and television.
I get though. These are all actually really interesting concepts, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this show will tackle and develop them, and I just remember what franchise I'm watching.
Elsewhere, Hime was fuming over her latest loss, but found comfort with God. No, I'm not trying to be a Jehovah's Witness or anything. She was actually interacting with this world's supposed God, and yeah.
Okay, everyone, I think we should all agree to have 911 on speed dial just for this guy and his unbuttoned shirt.
Also, how many more evil writers are we going to get in this show? And if anything, could we at least get this guy next? Anyway, Saga encouraged her to go look for a new friend and teammate with the help of a new transformation trinket. Surprisingly, the seemingly unsocial Hime jumped at the idea of making a new friend. Well, it was surprising until...
And this was the moment I realized I was gonna like this character.
I mean, wow, right off the bat, one of our main heroines said something so selfish and unheroic that would feel out of place in Konosuba.
And just like Konosuba, they make it clear that these aren't meant to be admirable characters in any way, but rather ones that were supposed to be entertained by their complete ineptitude. For now.
Yes, it's obvious that Hime is meant to start off as a total garbage human being, and then eventually develop into a true superheroine and Precure. The fact that she'll make us laugh along the way just makes this arc all the more enjoyable to watch. And on that note, how does she go about trying to find her new BFF?
Take note, future writers, this is how you make an entertainingly stupid lead.
Unsurprisingly, it ended up being Megumi, and Hime made this face.
You still got ways to go, kid.
Hime then stalked, innocently followed close behind her new potential friend. And as a result, she was able to see how much of a social butterfly Megumi was compared to her. This included witnessing her try to retrieve a hat for a younger girl and hey, maybe you should take off your shoes and socks first. The older brother of the girl and Megumi's childhood friend, Seiji Sagara, seemed to share my sentiments and ended up helping her when she, I don't know, tried to hop to the hat. Anyway, after bragging about her good deeds, Hime was forced into trying to talk to her. Luckily for her, they did manage to start up a conversation when Megumi took an interest in her fashion sense.
Gee, the blue ends up starting a friendship because of fashion. Where have I seen this before?
Anyway, Ribbon also just casually introduced herself to Megumi and revealed that just as her name suggested, Hime was a legit princess and heiress to the Blue Sky Kingdom. Oh, and they also invited Megumi to become a Precure. Yeah, if it seems like the dialogue in this show is at all clunky, it's only because it is. Elsewhere, Namakelda returned, choosing the little girl from earlier as his next victim.
I see you haven't changed at all, Evolt.
But yeah, the gimmick of the Terabats is actually a pretty interesting one. They basically use magic mirrors to reverse the victim's happiness into misery to power them. It's a good usage of their motifs, and the monsters themselves look pretty cool.
And yeah, I'm gonna stick with calling them the Terabats instead of their original names of the Psyarchs, just because I think it sounds cooler.
And depending on which of the generals they were fighting, the surrounding area changed. In Namakelder's case, everything turned to mold. Ew. Of course, our heroine soon arrived, with Hime taking the first transformation sequence of the series, and I'll say right now, these sequences aren't bad. They have decent choreography and reflect the characters' personalities well, but man, did they move around way too much. I'm not kidding, I think I could get motion sickness if I watched this for too long. Anyway, Hime tried to take on the Terabat, and once again, it didn't go so well. Thus, Megumi tried to step in to save her friend, even though she was scared, and yeah, this scene was a bit too rushed.
Oh boy, I'm already complaining a lot about the first episode, aren't I? But yeah, this is a good example of show, don't tell.
Throughout this first episode, Megumi has been a relatively happy-go-lucky camper that hasn't shown any real signs of doubt or fear, which is fine for a main heroine who you want to build up as a strong-willed warrior, and then maybe later show more of her vulnerable side to make her into a more three-dimensional character and all that. Here though, it kind of feels like they're skipping a few steps. I mean, why not actually show her being afraid at the sight of the Terabat before Namakelder has to explain it for us?
I know this sounds like a minor nitpick right now, but believe me, it's going to become a recurring issue with this series. I did say I didn't dislike it as much as I used to, didn't I?
One thing that might have given them more time to flesh out the scene may have been to just forego Hime's transformation sequence, as episode 1, appropriately enough, ended with Megumi transforming for the very first time. Anyway, we enter right into episode 2, and while the first episode's fights were nothing special, understandable since they wanted to establish that Hime wasn't a good fighter, this episode started right off with the good stuff. Sure, it still featured the two losing since both were inexperienced, but hey, they still made it look good. And Hime even showed a little growth, recognizing when it was time to make a strategical retreat. They headed back to the house from the first episode, which turned out to be the emissary for the Blue Sky Kingdom.
Pretty sure you have to file all sorts of paperwork in order to get that kind of recognition, but nah, no, maybe God just gets special perks or something.
Speaking of whom, he greeted their new guest.
何でもお見通しだね。
鏡で見てたからね。
So you're watching an underage girl through your mirrors, you say? Yes, Mr. God, could I get your signature on this confession, please?
Anyway, thanks to his voyeuristic mirrors, we were able to learn how the threat of the Phantom Empire was actually a worldwide pandemic. Yep, instead of just focusing on a small island country, these villains had spread their chaos over the entire planet. And apparently, this had all started when someone had opened a very obvious Pandora's box stand-in called the Akushia and released the Empire. Hime clearly looked a little guilty.
For as much as I've been complaining about this series so far, I do genuinely like some of the concepts and subplots they've been weaving together so far.
Little details like everyone having become jaded to the Phantom Empire does a good job at building this world by showing how this threat has likely been around for a good while and how much the Precure are needed because of it.
And as we progress, we'll get a lot more interesting concepts, but yeah, as for the actual execution of it all, well...
In spite of it actually being a rather wise choice, Hime still didn't take the fact that they needed to retreat all that well, figuring that having a friend and partner would have solved all of her problems instantly. Again, right now, they're doing a good job playing up Hime's narrow-minded worldview, having been a literal princess for most of her life. To make matters worse, her kingdom had been taken over by the Empire, putting the young girl between a rock and a hard place. Meanwhile, Namakelder got new orders from his queen, delivered by this painfully obvious true big bad of the series.
You know, it's because of that attitude that your show kind of fell apart in its final arc.
Elsewhere, Hime was comforted by Yuko and her special honey candy. Yeah, $10 says she cheaped out and just gave her a lozenge. Because of this, she was able to later tell Megumi where to find her while she was cosplaying as Cheryl from Milky Homes. Well, actually, this is a part of the gimmick of the series, the Precure, which would give them special clothing and attributes, both in their civilian and Precure force, but come on, they were totally trying to cash in on the Bushi Road property.
Seriously, Nakajima, what is it with you and trying to upstage Cheryl's?
Yeah, anyway, the discount homes managed to find Hime thanks to her literal toys. And she managed to convince the little princess to give Precuring another chance by pointing out all of her good points, including the fact that she was abnormally fast on her feet, and even shared her own dreams as a Precure after having spent less than half a day as one. Well, whatever, there were more important matters they needed to address.
Well, of course, for marketing reasons. Though, I'm pretty sure that pose is copyrighted.
Yeah, I'll admit, this stuff is kind of dumb, but let's just stick attacking that for now. They eventually confronted Namakelder, and unfortunately, I think they blew their animation budget on their first fight, because this one against the putties of the season was just, yeah. However, what they did have were bracelets which would let them perform whatever sort of attack they wanted.
And boy, do they take advantage. Yeah, I think even V3 is saying you guys are overdoing it.
Using some good old teamwork, they defeated the Terabab, with Hime even taking the first finisher of her team. Okay, that's legit different, and does kind of play a part in my overall thoughts regarding this series, but again, more on that later. With that, the Happiness Charge team was formed, and Hime was rewarded with her snot-covered pre-cards, which also came with the benefit of granting a single wish, just as long as they collected them all.
You guys really are the Disney of Japan, aren't ya?
And just to add to Daddy's shopping list, episode 3 opened with a new team receiving smartphones from Blue.
それはあくまで僕らの連絡用に使ってほしい。
Tell the truth, God. You just don't want to pay for the minutes.
But yeah, he also gave them your standard, your superhero identity needs to remain a secret speech that our heroines almost immediately broke when they ran into Seiji. Iron Man takes better care of his secrets than you two. Understandably, Seiji didn't want to deal with these two and their poorly drawn faces. Yeah, unfortunately, the series does see a lot more significant drops in animation quality. Like, I get that these aren't the easiest designs to animate, but you can't tell me Queen Mirage here doesn't look like she's melting into her chair, or that those hamburger steaks don't look a little off. I'll admit though, I do kind of find an ironic enjoyment when the animation of the show gets particularly bad, which might be a thing throughout it. Anyway, Deep Mirror had already sent out the next general, Hoshiwa, and no, I said wa, not na.
Granted, the former is a homonym for pretty much the same word, so I guess you could just chalk it up to Narita being a little bit lazy that day.
But yeah, she launched an attack which caught the eye of Seiji as he was making his morning jog. And surprisingly, he actually tried to take on the baddies and even held his own for a little while until the foot soldiers used a cheap shot. Still, A for effort, kid. Megumi and Hime eventually arrived on the scene and had no choice but to transform in front of him. They took on the villains with,
If your animators aren't feeling like working today, just rely on good old-fashioned cartoon logic. Well, that and some canned CGI map attacks.
Yeah, aside from power-ups for their civilian forms, the stock CGI animations are going to be the primary uses of the pre-cards. I'll get more into my feelings about these things a little later, but for now, all I'll say is, this show was practically begging to have memes made of it. With the pipes cleared, they switched focus to the Terabad, and thankfully, Hime once again got her time to shine, studying the monster and giving Megumi an opening to finish it. However, the two then had to deal with a certain loose end.
I've got the chloroform!
No, of course, they took him to see Blue and explained everything. And again, Seiji proved to have some guts and agreed to fight alongside the Precure.
つうかお前がもっとしっかりしろ
Anyway, Blue then, out of nowhere, asked if the childhood friends were dating. The two casually denied it and wondered why exactly God was interested in such things.
プリキュアには一つ重大なルールがある恋愛禁止だ
Oh, don't mind me, just relieve a little stress beforehand.
Alright, hopefully this next episode will be able to calm me down.
Or it could almost give me a heart attack, jeez.
That little bit of nightmare fuel was brought to us by Hime trying on her new school uniform. Yep, apparently God was enrolling her in Megumi school.
What is he paying the tuition with?
But yeah, obviously the shut-in wasn't jumpy at the idea of going to a public learning facility. Don't blame her. However, Megumi was able to win her over with the promise that she was going to make many friends. Yeah, it went about as well as you'd imagine.
じゃあ黒板に名前書いてくれる
Well, to be fair, she's doing better than the cat. But seriously, this episode does do a pretty good job addressing social anxieties, especially for kids of Hime's age.
And after a few more moments of nightmare fuel that makes Attack on Titan feel tame, Hime decided to throw in the towel.
I'm Batman!
Thankfully, Yuko arrived and almost managed to bribe her out of hiding with her candy. It didn't work, but at least it got her out of the nurse's office and into the bathrooms.
Are they trying to cover all of the Wate-Mote bases?
She ran away again, forcing Megumi to enlist a little help from Seiji, who pointed out that she might have rushed the princess to come out of her tower a little too quickly by forcing her views onto her. Hime heard this, but also had to admit that she was at fault too for her lack of resolve.
I really like this because it is showing that both of our leads are neither completely right or wrong, as there is really no exact science to forming relationships with others, so good stuff.
Anyway, Hime also ran into the very obvious victim of the week, a complete wuss of a teacher who had a little less of an excuse of being unable to interact with others. Like, seriously, even Hime basically told the guy to grow a pair. Anyway, it didn't take long before Namakeldo arrived. Hime ended up taking on the Terabad for a little bit while Megumi dealt with the small fry. Yet, in spite of clearly being outclassed, she held her ground, determined to protect the school so that she could properly thank Yuko for the candy.
Why didn't Hime make the top 25 of the NHK popularity polls?
Megumi eventually joined in by using the grunts as boxing gloves? Okay, that's a little unheroic and kind of sadistic, but I'll let it pass. Hime finished things up with another pre-card map attack and finisher. The episode ended with Hime officially befriending Yuko. Episode 5 opened with more Yuko and plenty of off-model faces.
Seriously, for someone who's supposed to specialize in designs, Akira Takahashi just can't seem to get heads right.
On their way home from school, our superheroines did the civil thing and tried to pick up some litter along the way, including a bottle some brat just callously threw in the river.
そこの君止まりなさいポイ捨て現行犯で逮捕します
Impersonating an officer of the law is also very illegal, you know.
But yes, once again, coincidence of coincidences, I end up reviewing a previous series with an episode with plenty of references to a current series I'm reviewing, with our heroines teaching the importance of environmentalism and even donning some medical clothing. The two ended up doing a bunch of various good deeds around town thanks to the pre-cards, including helping a potential stalker.
You know what? Forget what I said. Put the cop costume back on.
Eventually, they did make their way to Megumi's apartment to partake in some of her mom's giant pancakes. Like, forget teaching the kids about not littering, you better teach them the importance of maintaining a healthy cholesterol. Anyway, interacting with Megumi's mother got Hime to think about her own parents and how they still needed to rescue them. Megumi assured her that they would save them by using the wish provided by the pre-cards once they collected them all. In turn, Hime asked what her partner would wish for, which of course would be to cure her mother's illness.
But wouldn't they only be allowed one wish? Oh, I think I know where this is going. This should be interesting. Eh? What do you mean don't get my hopes up?
Anyway, the two would later witness a lady being chased, and yeah, you can guess where this is going, but at least they also provided us with the cheesiest pre-card attack so far. Kamen Rider Brave did better. But yeah, it was an obvious trap by Hoshiwa taking advantage of their heroism, to which Megumi proceeded to lecture the villainess about lying.
Megumi, I realize you're new to this whole superheroine thing and all that, but, you know, that's just kind of what villains do, just saying.
Yeah, I'll be honest, this whole exchange between Hoshiwa and the Cures just feels really poorly executed. Part of it is due to the really stiff and ugly animation, but also because the message they're trying to deliver here feels more than a little phoned in. As I just said, it's more than a little pointless to lecture a villain, much less one they've barely interacted with. Really, a speech like this feels like it should be used as the thesis for the series and saved for a much bigger moment than a throwaway filler episode like this. Anyway, poorly animated fight, with the highlight being this admittedly laughably bad delivery. They defeated the monster and got 5 cards for their good deeds.
And not just so that they can sell more of their rider card bootlegs.
So yeah, not all that great an episode, especially due to that poorly delivered message. Episode 6 thankfully bounces things back a little, starting by reminding me of one of my favorite movies ever. However, I guess Hime is more of a Shinkai fan as she wasn't interested in partaking in the trout. A little argument with Ribbon drove her out of the house and into the hands of her dealer.
I don't have a problem!
But yeah, I do like how this series doesn't forget about Hime's bratty side and do present it as something that she has to grow out of. And while Yuko does give in to her demands, she was able to subtly convince Hime into helping out at her family's bento shop and teach her the importance of appreciating good cooking. Which of course included performing menial tasks like peeling potatoes.
Again, after you've seen other shows completely fail at delivering this message, you begin to appreciate them a little more.
Thanks to Yuko, Hime began contemplating making up with Ribbon. It didn't exactly play out that way when the fairy and Megumi found her thanks to a tip from Seiji. And besides, they didn't exactly have the time to worry about that as Nelma Kelder soon arrived, having smelled the love-filled bentos. Thankfully, they overcame the bad animation of the previous episode and made this one look much better. Naturally, they also introduced another pre-card attack.
I'll save my comments for a very specific episode.
Anyway, Ribbon and Hime made up, for the most part, making for a good episode that I personally really enjoyed as a bit of a foodie myself.
However, this episode and the last do really bring up another little issue I have with this show. Hime feels more like the real main character rather than the designated Pink, which I've personally really developed a sense for after finishing up another recent series.
This came to a head in the next episode when Hime invited Megumi to a party at her place, and she showed up 2 hours early. And the reason she did this was because she wanted to help set up, including baking a cake that we would later learn Hime was trying to make by herself for Megumi as a surprise present.
Yeah, understandably, this is the point where a lot of viewers got just as frustrated with Megumi as Hime is here.
When you get right down to it, Megumi is a real busybody. I mean, yes, Pinks tend to be overly helpful at times, but I think even Miyuki would be more mindful to not help set up a party that's clearly for her and come off as an insensitive, condescending jerk.
Wrong.
And I get it, it's supposed to be a major flaw that she's meant to overcome, much like with Hime and her bright attitude, but I don't think it's nearly as charming as it is with Hime.
When Hime makes mistakes, it's clearly out of experience from being a pampered little princess from a foreign land. Meanwhile, Megumi should know better, but as even Seiji points out, she often seems to fail to see the forest for the trees. As a result, Hime has had the bulk of character development in this series, while Megumi has remained rather static, with many of her supposed deeper traits being told to us rather than shown.
If you don't really get attached to the character, it's hard to want to follow along with them on their journey towards maturity.
Anyway, Hime rightfully kicked Megumi out, but the two were convinced to make amends thanks to Blue and Seiji respectively. However, in the middle of all of this, Hoshiwa crashed their wedding and created a terabad made of total irony. At first, Hime tried to take it on alone, but while she had improved, she still lacked the power to deal any significant blow on a terabad created from 2 people instead of just 1. So of course, Megumi came in to save the day and rightfully apologized for almost ruining Hime's party.
私こそどうしても一人で作りたくて
You shouldn't have to apologize for anything, Hime.
But apparently, this was reason enough to unlock a new combo finisher for the two because, I don't know, Gosei said so. With that, the episode ended with Hime bringing out the cake and just declaring it a collaboration between the Cures and Ribbon. Said pastry was meant to commemorate their 100-day anniversary since becoming friends. Yeah, just ignore the semantics of that, and I guess appreciate the Yuri baiting. Then also ignore the fact that we just got 2 breakup episodes in a row.
He became kinda calling you guys dysfunctional, and that your faces are off-model 90% of the time.
Episode 8 opened with one of the biggest game changers for this show, the international Precure. Magical girls all over the world with questionable degrees of, stereotyping. Yeah, let's stick with that for now.
Now, going back to all this 10th anniversary stuff, which they were still celebrating with the opening cameos this episode had Pine, some, including myself at the time, saw this as a huge missed opportunity to have the All-Stars teaming with the main cast and even the international Cures.
The episode itself even confirmed that the only known team in Japan was the Happiness Charge team, meaning that outside of the questionably canon U-Stage 3, we weren't going to get any sort of crossover in this series.
But hindsight being a thing, yeah, maybe it's best we just keep that stuff to the movies.
Yeah, just as I said and hinted at earlier, canon has gotten really damn complicated in Precure recently. So much so that I think the less wrinkles we have at this point, the better. Just keep the shows self-contained, and then we can have fun at the cinemas, for the most part.
Now, as for the international Cures and how they affected the show itself, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet.
And yeah, unfortunately, I have to provide a credit for Little Miss Paparazzi here, because this isn't going to be her only appearance. And of course, just like most journalists these days, favoritism was the word of the day, with her propping up the local team, and even encouraging them to go to their town's local festival. Apparently, it had somehow lasted 1,000 years, and celebrated a town legend.
地上に降りた神様と人間の女性が恋に落ちたと言われてるの
Again, just relieving a little stress, don't mind me.
Anyway, the two went to the festival, where they also ran into their classmates. Ribbon had given Hime a very limited allowance of only 300 yen. She used 2/3 of it on your standard carnival fare, and her last 100 yen on...
はいどうぞお返し
Hey, can guess why I'm enjoying the show a lot more upon a second viewing.
Also, can we give an award to the voice director who told Megumi Han to make this sound? Meanwhile, at the Phantom Empire, their attempts at world domination were starting to fall apart thanks to the international Cure stepping it up, as well as the establishment of the Happiness Charge team. Then again, when you have generals like these two, it shouldn't be that surprising. Thus, it was time to bring out the big guns.
100年経ってもプリキュアを倒すことなどできんわ。
Oh boy, we've got some Terracoyas in the house, guys.
I don't care that your last character was retconned into oblivion by some little yellow blob. It's good to have Dio back in this franchise.
こいつにだって無理に決まってます。
できる。
Back with our protagonists, they decide to top their little festival bender by having their fortunes read by... maybe I spoke too soon about the All-Stars being off the table. Actually, this girl named Iona was from their school and just so happened to sound like a former member of Sphere. Anyway, she read their fortune.
あなたたちの未来は最悪よ。
Yeah, that's kind of spot on.
Still, they didn't let low revenues keep them down and took on Oritsky when he arrived.
ファンレターは幻影帝国に送るがいい。
Lady, it's Deadpool. I would be surprised if he didn't look into at least a few dozen cameras.
Anyway, he used all 4 of their classmates to seemingly create a Terabad, but in a really well done twist, he had actually created 2, which, yeah, makes a lot of sense, and it's a good escalation of the conflict after we just had an episode that introduced the concept of 2-person Terabads.
お前たちには
Okay, I'll let up on the Koyatsu references. For now.
Anyway, now is a good time as any to prop up the 6th Ranger of this series. Cure Fortune single-handedly defeated both of the Terabads before, coincidentally, also giving Megumi an ominous warning about working with Hime. This was a really good episode with better animation than usual, though in hindsight, it's also one of the most tragic, ain't it? We, of course, opened the following episode with the duo reflecting on their loss and trying to figure out who Fortune was, even though, yeah, it should be pretty damn obvious, guys. In the end, though, they decided they first need to become verifiers themselves.
体だけじゃなくて気持ちを鍛えることも大切だよ。
That's rich, coming from a guy who almost killed his mom just to get a new transformation belt. Whatever did happen to Sagark?
Anyway, to improve their skills, the 2 started training at Iona's family's karate dojo. Of course, they also met the victim of the week there, young Misao Nohara? Seriously, how many girls would want to have a fro at that age? Anyway, Seiji led them through the basics of the martial arts, starting with more defense-based moves. Obviously, they wanted to quickly move on to actual offensive skills, but Seiji denied them, and yeah, this is your standard Karate Kid plot.
I mean, I don't dislike it as someone who practiced Kendo for a few years, and I like that they're emphasizing the fact that they have to take it step by step.
But come on, we can all tell where this is going. Thus, we may as well just check in our villa and said, okay, how can I not make Dio references when it's clear that's what they want to do with this character?
ほう、向かってくるのか。逃げずにこのディオに近づいてくるのか。
But yeah, after declaring himself as the leader of the generals, Oritsky used Shinshan's future mom to create a Terabad. Naturally, this is where the Precure learned the importance of knowing the basics of karate when they tried to rush in with no defense.
好きと見せかけて回し蹴り。見たかこの戦いのセンス。
Personally, I think it works a little better the other way around, foot then arm.
For the sling blade, Andrade did his homework. Boom!
Andrade is the best.
But yeah, since they failed to apply their training at first, they were left as sitting ducks until a passing by earworm came in. Yeah, Mystery Precure, who had made a blink and you'll miss it cameo in New Stage 3 a couple weeks before this episode aired, saved the day with, I guess you could call it simple gear logic? Though she's not punching out mountains while she's singing. Anyway, she pretty much reset the battle by healing both the duel and possibly the Terabad. Regardless, Megumi and Hime finally applied their defensive skills with all of the style and grace of waxing a car and defeated the Terabad. They tried to thank the mystery cure named Honey, who of course, like the other 6th Ranger of this season, did reveal her true identity.
パンチやキックもすごいけど、歌ってみんなが和むよね。
Yeah, I beg to differ.
Having been entranced by her singing, episode 10 opened with
いただきますと。
Ronka, don't you dare do that hand gesture.
On a side note, I think Megumi Han is the best singer in this cast. Thus, her character, and I'm not even joking this time, considered Cure Honey's song to be an absolute earworm and thus wanted to avoid it at all costs. In fact, this whole episode was about how damaging an earworm can be, with the victim of the week, the choir club's president, being unable to get a practice done with her club because of it.
Seriously, even though I wasn't part of band, I can totally relate with this episode. I mean, I currently can't get Irma Kun's opening out of my head.
But yeah, because everyone was distracted by Honey's song, the president couldn't get on the same page with them, and unfortunately, this episode mostly portrayed her as only being in the wrong.
Again, I wasn't in band, but personally, I think everyone was wrong in this situation.
The president for not finding a middle ground, and the club for prioritizing their own interests. Even if it's popular for now, Honey's song might not resonate with everyone, but no, by the end of the episode, the president conforms to everyone's whims, and they just sing a variation on the song.
This episode's writer, Makoto Koyama, did a pretty good job with that cooking episode, better than Kira Kira in some ways, but this band episode? Yeah, I think even Sweet did better.
Anyway, the villain of this episode was Hoshiwa, who, like many so-called artists these days, tried to become famous through plagiarism. And obviously, even though her actress has sung for the NHK, Hoshiwa sounded awful.
Or maybe it's because she sang for the NHK that she's bad.
This of course led to a magical girl sing-off with her and Honey clearly having nothing on Kirika versus Shabe from G. Besides, the main point of this episode, more than anything else, was showing off every function of the Honey baton, besides the finisher, which, to be fair, is something to look forward to in the next episode. Anyway, with her help, Megumi and Hime defeated the Terror Bat, but Honey once again left without revealing her secret identity.
Okay, so I guess they're just gonna save the reveal for a later episode.
姫ちゃん私嬉しい私の作った歌を褒めてくれて
Or just reveal it a couple minutes later. Also, that face. Yeah, I bet you didn't think I was gonna bring that up, but really, what the actual hell, guys? Maybe you could have saved a little bit of your animation budget if you hadn't spent it on those cameos.
Thus, episode 11 immediately followed up on this, with Yuko addressing the little details like introduce yourself to Ribbon, and how she chose her Precure name. Oh, and as for probably the most important question, well, that would have to be saved until the end of the episode, but hey, at least she got to add to the title card, right? Anyway, they head over to the embassy for even more pancakes, of course drenched in honey.
Man, I miss days when I could have eaten stuff like that and not have to worry about my cholesterol.
Blue soon returned after having spent the last episode meeting with the international cures.
So you illegally entered into foreign nations just to see even more adolescent girls. Okay, just gonna add that in.
And if that and his razor-sharp chin weren't off-putting enough, he apparently knew all along that Yuko was a Precure, apparently, having made her one between Hime and Megumi. And he never bothers explaining why he withheld this information, especially when Hime clearly could have used the help. I guess it was just a case of...
Quite frankly, I would put more faith into the god of death than this putz.
And yes, Yuko also kept this a secret, but as we'll soon see, she at least had more solid reasons for why. The next day, the duo and Seiji went to meet her at her family's rice farm. Apparently, Seiji had suspected Yuko was Honey, much to the chagrin of Hime.
ニコニコ笑いながら心の中キュアハニーは私じゃ
In every series of this franchise, I managed to find at least one spirit animal.
Unfortunately, cynicism has to be put on hold when you're talking to help you out at a farm. Thankfully, it did result with Hime interacting more with Yuko, including this one really well laid out scene where just through some subtle gestures, you could tell exactly what the former was thinking. And yeah, I gotta say right now, I think these two, hands down, have the best interactions in the show.
When she's not joking around, Yoshimi Narita can write some great stuff.
Anyway, Namek held her attacked using Yuko's grandparents as the victims of the week. The original duo was unable to fight properly in the muddy rice fields. This is why you gotta waterproof your gear, guys. Yuko, on the other hand, tried to stop the fight with more peaceful methods.
Oh, I
think a certain redheaded magical girl wants to have a word with you.
And apparently, Yuko felt the same and transformed with yet another sequence that gives me bullshit sickness. Ironic coming for the Cure who encourages eating a lot. However, while her song worked on the grunts, Namakelder and his Teraband were immune to it due to their laziness to something that sounds like a lullaby. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just not a fan of J-pop or something. Still, this gave Hime and Megumi time to escape and save her. And after finally hammering things out, they officially became a trio. Thus, they made quick work of the villains, with Yuko showing off her finisher that involved dropping a magic clover bigger than the moon from space onto the poor Teraband.
命よ天に帰れ
Yeah, I think even the White Devil is saying you're overdoing it.
After the fight, Yuko shared her basic but still very amiable reasons for becoming a Precure, as well as why she kept her identity a secret.
こんなの嬉しすぎるよ恥ずかしくって
Can we just forget about everyone else and just have these two as our main characters?
But no, in the following episode, we ended up getting a reminder of who one of our supposed main characters are, when Megumi, like 80% of Pink leads, needed to study for a makeup test. Ironic that the cameo cure of this episode was one of the two legit book-smart Pinks. Anyway, they set up a study group with the representative of Class F. Man, I missed that anime. Also, this episode finally saw Blue do something practical and bring down the hammer of God on Megumi's poor studying skills. He does take it maybe a step too far.
その再テストで一つでも赤点取っためぐみのプリキュア活動を禁止する
Though, to be fair, this is also a season that established that there are Precures all over the world, with Japan having at least 3 confirmed cures, so I can somewhat understand discharging a member of this large army for educational purposes.
Besides, yet again, we already know how an episode like this is going to end.
And to this episode's credit, they do present alternative methods of study by relating it back to their hobbies and interests. Yeah, it's a little phoned in, but I won't complain too much about lessons of the day like this that are at least well delivered. Anyway, Yamazaki obviously became the victim of the week, and since he was established as a member of their school's baseball team, he got an appropriate Teraband. In fact, they took it all the way with,
さあ野球で勝負よ
プレーボールですぞ
This is just so dumb.
Yep, the fight of the week completely turned things into a full-on sports anime. They even let Yuko remain in her form change that just so happened to be based off of a cheerleader's costume, making me question how the heck do these form changes work, and why they don't use them more aside from big attacks. Also, why did they make Megumi's back glow pink, making it look like it's being censored? But yeah, they played the game comically straight, with Megumi scoring a home run after 2 strikes and a ton of foul balls.
勝負は勝負ですぞ最悪らしく立派に浄化されるのです
The real kicker is the fact that you subbed the show's better animation for this stuff. Priorities, what are those?
Yeah, let's just wrap up this nonsense with the predictable resolution of Yamazaki and Megumi passing their makeup test thanks to their friends and their alternative study methods.
And you know, I think that's a good enough note as any to end the first part of these reviews on, because really, this episode sums up my general feelings for this series. It's dumb, but at the same time, for a cynic like me, I think I can actually kind of enjoy how much they relish in this fact.
As I said, after reviewing some frustratingly mediocre series recently, I think I was craving just about anything different, and this series certainly has that in spades. Now, does that necessarily equate to actual quality? No, absolutely not. Megumi early on lost me as a convincing pink lead. Not only did she kind of annoy me at times, but also just didn't have the presence of an actual leader, often just spouting the lesson of the day while everyone else around her developed, minus a certain deity who we'll get more into in the oncoming videos. Also, the animation quality, especially in this first quarter of episodes, was all over the place. Sometimes we would get rubbery yet still kind of consistent design. And other times we would have whole episodes where everyone looked like they bashed their faces into a wall. And yet, rewatching this series, I am starting to appreciate the fairly strong supporting cast. Hime is legit one of the best spoiled brat characters I've ever seen. Just obnoxious enough that you can tell she needs to grow up a little, but also charming enough and written in a cynically comedic way that she remains really entertaining throughout her little arc. Meanwhile, Yuko is every bit as sweet as her candies, with some very amiable goals in life both as a person and as a Precure. To me, this is a much more character-focused series that doesn't try to overcomplicate things for now, which I can appreciate. Again, I definitely don't see this as a great series by any stretch, and in fact, if I wanted a simpler, more character-focused Precure series, I'd probably reach for Smile first. But, as I hope to prove by the end of these reviews, I think there's some room for vindication for this series and its many criticisms.
Next time though, things are going to get a lot more complicated, for better and for worse, probably more so for the latter, but that's why I'm here to talk about it. We'll see some new characters and all sorts of twists and turns, mostly involving a certain Tomatsu. Look forward to it. Until then though, farewell for now my friends, and I better get out of here before the Dio memes run out of control.